The king is dead, but honestly that's not important. Now's your chance to lay claim to the throne, and you might be tempted to bust out a symbolic song,
Oh, I just can't wait to be king.
but it's going to take a bit more effort than just that. The kingly concept might imply a monarchy, but winning the throne is a much more democratic process. You need a majority vote from 3 of the 5 factions to win, and sorry, gerrymandering ain't an option. The theme itself is fairly abstract, but the general idea is that you're attempting to win over faction members, which are tricks, so that you have a majority vote at the end. Winning members over is a simple numbers game, with higher ones beating out lower ones. But it's a bit more complex than that, as every faction also has a quirk of their own that might toss some red tape in your campaign to rule the kingdom. Claim is a simple pack of 52 cards, and they are well made. They have held up to frequent shuffling without the use of sleeves, and none of them have started the fray or developed visible nicks or tears. The cards themselves are simple, with just a number on them dictating the mechanics. The artwork for each of the 5 factions is quite nice, however, and has a style that's distinct to the game. You know a card belongs to Claim when you see it. Aside from a set of 5 0-numbered goblins, every card has unique artwork, and the depicted arc reflects the number shown. Higher numbers tend to be better in Claim, so a number 2 knight might be depicted as thin and scrawny, while number 9 knight looks strong and bulky. It's a neat and thoughtful artistic decision that pays off quite nicely. Claim is not an expensive game. A pack of 52 cards with custom art is a reasonable value as far as the components are concerned for the price. Claim is a very simple game that most people could learn within minutes, making it an ideal gateway or casual game. The game is played in 2 rounds, with each player being dealt a hand of 13 cards. The top card of the deck is revealed as the current trick, and the lead player then plays a card from their hand, while the next player responds with a card of their own. In most cases, the higher number card wins the trick. The winning player adds it to their pile, while the loser takes the top card of the deck and adds it to their pile. Once all tricks have been claimed, another round is played using the piles you formed in the first round. But this time, every trick you win is added to your score pile, and the player with the majority of 3 or more factions at the end wins. That's the basic rundown. The trick is, the second player must always follow the same faction that the leader played if they have any of those factions' cards in their hand. If I play a knight, you must also play a knight. That is, unless you don't have one, in which case you can play anything you want, but I would win the trick by default. The factions bring Claim to life by making exceptions to the simple rules. Knights always beat goblins, for example, regardless of the numbers. Doppelgangers can be played on any faction as if they were that faction. In the first round, undead go straight to the winner's scoring area, while dwarves go to the loser's scoring pile during the second round. The faction quirks are an interesting spin on a game of simple numbers. Claim's design leaves room for some interesting choices to make. At first glance, it might seem like you want to win all of the tricks with the highest number during the first round, in order to stack your hand for the second round, and sure, that helps. But you also have to think about how much of each faction you're bringing to the table during round 2. All 52 cards are used at some point during the game, and you actually don't want or need to win every trick. You can intentionally lose a trick by playing low numbers, which can force a crappy card into your opponent's pile. Beyond that, you might intentionally swing a specific faction to your opponent that you don't need to win. The faction quirks spin this thread even further, and it's tricky to decide exactly how you want to play out each turn. You could score undead early in the first round or sweep dwarves in the second. If you force the other player to take more goblins than you, you're open to having your knights bully them into submission. The fact that what you do in the first round dictates your entire hand for the second round is very interesting, and adds some wiggle room for an incredibly simple card game. There are undoubtedly viable decisions to be made and some degree of strategy in Claim, but the more I played it, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that luck also plays a massive factor, to the point that I felt many of my games were decided the moment I shuffled the deck. There were times that one opening hand was powerless against the other, and one player would rule the entire game. I think this is largely due to the restrictive nature of what you're allowed to play against the leading player. Certain hand compositions are just straight up flops if you aren't leading the trick. The second player must always match the faction that the leader played if possible. That means many turns you don't have much of a decision to make at all, and that simply doesn't feel good. On the flip side, I've also won the second round when almost my entire pile consisted of random cards from the deck because I lost all the tricks. The combination of the faction restriction and utter randomness of the cards you receive at the start of the game, and when losing a trick, doesn't seem to mesh too cohesively. Claim is an interesting trick-taking game that is very accessible to learn or teach. The small box can fit in your pockets, purse, or any relatively small space, which makes it an ideal game to take when on the go. The simple numbers game is elevated by the elegant way that the factions ever so slightly tweak the rules, and I dig the artwork. But the overall experience feels far more random than it should, and I'm not at all a fan of that. Claim isn't an expensive game though. Its portable nature and easy to learn mechanics definitely give the game merit. A lot of people won't mind a heavy degree of randomness, especially given how fast the game is to set up and reset. You just shuffle a deck of cards. It couldn't claim my vote, but it still ran a pretty cool campaign. It's entirely possible that my bias is bleeding through on this one. Claim is completely antithetical to my tastes. I favor heavy and complex games, and Claim is the polar opposite, so I'll leave room for the possibility that my eyes are perceiving the randomness to be worse than it actually is. After all, plenty of people love Claim. On top of that, my experience with trick-taking games is limited, so I have little to compare it to. One thing I do want to note is that there are a lot of expansions for Claim, and the way they work is by bringing new factions to the mix. You don't just add them, you swap them around, which can result in a ton of different combinations for varied gameplay and replay value. It's entirely possible that could turn my opinion around on it. Different faction setups may be impacted differently by the randomness. None of that is relevant to my review of this specific box set though. Regardless, I don't think it's a bad game, especially for such an inexpensive price, but unless I pick up a few of the expansions, I probably won't have any desire to play it again. To recap, the pros. Claim has great artwork. The game is fast to set up, and it has a portable box size. It's very easy to learn. The faction mechanics work great, and you can pick it up for a low price. The cons. The game sometimes feels decided the moment the deck is shuffled. The follow the leader restriction can leave you with dead turns. And the unpredictability of random cards when losing a trick doesn't feel cohesive or fun. So who would like Claim? If you want a nifty game to teach casual or non-gamers, if you want a pocket-sized game with easy cleanup to travel with, or if you enjoy randomness with a bit of decision space. Who wouldn't like Claim? If you want variety, playing with the same 5 factions does get repetitive quickly. If you like victory to be dictated through skill, luck plays a huge role in Claim. To some degree, card counting plays a role. If you don't like that, Claim might not be for you. All of that is Claim. Thanks for watching my review. You might also be interested in my review of Dice Miner, another simple gateway game. It should be popping up on screen right about now. If you enjoyed this video or found it informative, liking and subscribing is immensely helpful and helps boost my visibility on YouTube. I've also left a few links down in the description below, a link to the written version of this review on my website, and a link to my Ko-fi page if you feel like tossing in a donation. But in any case, thanks for watching, and until next time.